Hello, my name is Jesse, and welcome to the inaugural history lesson on the forgotten history of the Backyardian War. Today I have for you the Polish-made Go Now arming sword and companion buckler, and I would like to tell you how these came to be the staple weapon for the archers in the Backyardian War. Early on, the Backyardians had standardized as their primary go-to melee weapon was the large saber. And while it was supreme in the melee and on the one-on-one, it didn't pair well with the burgeoning development of archers in the Backyardian army. On too many occasions, as the front Yardians were advancing, the archer would discharge his arrows, and then in the work to go and switch to the melee, would get utterly trounced. And so logistics and procurement went back to the drawing board. They put it in order. Oh, hello, kitty. You want to come in and spoil the video? A little bit of Backyardian history right here. Yeah. Oh, not even interested. Okay. Where was I? Logistics and procurement sent out for a smaller sword that could be deployed more readily, and once deployed would offer greater protection for everything else where the sword wasn't. In other words, a shield. Have the proper foam blade, had to be LARP ready. He had to be a little bit smaller guard, and so on. They got in their first order of swords before they even had a time to finish field trials. The front Yardians came in and utterly trounced them and made off with the entire supply. Backyardian logistics and procurement wasn't ready to deal with this new level of expense, and so they had to go back to the drawing board. They needed to get something that was going to be a little bit cheaper, something a little bit less desirable by marauders. There was nothing there for them. However, once they dropped the LARP ready requirement, and the Polish-made Go Now sabers, which is actually kind of analogous to what they had already been using, became a ready option. So they got an order in, issued some of the troops, they liked them, and the rest is history, really. So anyway, thank you for joining me on this historical journey for how the Go Now arming sword became a Backyardian staple of archers everywhere. Thanks for watching. Before we go, I would like to demonstrate the change in deployment doctrine that the Backyardian army underwent, especially after the crushing defeat in the skirmish for Garden Sprinkler. So you would have your light shield held in your bow hand. It's only occasionally cause interference. These shields were made extra light because you had to dual wield it with a bow and have it not interfere too much. The later developed bucklers were much, much tougher. So the Backyardian would shoot his complement of arrows, and then when the enemy closed, sometimes getting rid of the bow was too cumbersome. They'd either drop it, which is something that nobody wanted, or they would simply go to drawing their sword, and then they would have their bow in the way. In order to dispose of the bow properly, they were expected to stop, move it over here, and by this time the enemy has closed in and is no doubt tickling your guts. First big change they made is because it was a smaller sword, it could be mounted on the back. Mounting a sword on the back is generally considered slower than on the hip, but given that you already have a lot of accoutrement on your hip, this will make sense in a second. Your archer would start out a little bit more vulnerable than before because he doesn't have his shield deployed right away. He would proceed to shoot his complement of arrows, and then as the enemy encroached, was able to put his bow away here, and because he did not have a long sword to draw in here, it was much easier to simply reach down, deploy his shield, and deploy his sword from his back, and close with the enemy much more quickly. So it's a bit of an unintuitive, albeit a handy way, in which the Backyardians drove back Frontierdia. Thank you again for joining us on this inaugural episode of Forgotten History of the Backyardian War. Thank you for watching.
chip on my shoulder. I say differently.